Welcome back to Old School Sports and our OOTP 23 playthrough of the Kansas City Royals. We are still in the early stages of the 2025 to 2026 offseason, but it has been a very busy offseason already for the Royals, even though we are just at the first day of free agency. We have made several trades already after the end of the regular season, and actually in some cases even after our season ended, with a first round 2-0 loss to the Yankees in a best-of-3 playoff series. The two most notable trades are we traded away two of the top 36 prospects in baseball to bring back Caleb Lagerwell to hopefully be our number 2 starter. We had traded him away 2 seasons ago when we brought on our number 1 starter, Trevor Rogers, and now Lagerwell will hopefully slot in right behind him, given that we are going to most likely be losing Clayton Kershaw, who was our number 2 starter last season on a 1-year contract. And the other significant trade we made, although it cost us much less, was trading with the Braves to bring in Stephen Paulini. We think he's got a potentially decent bat, just about 25 years old, also a competent corner outfielder. I think he will potentially be a improvement from Vinny Pasquantino, who we traded away, and also wanted to bring him on board to help replace Anthony Rendon, who we traded away despite having him for 1 year, with his former team paying the vast majority of his contract. So those are the two big trades. I think we've made the major league team better doing those trades, but it has definitely hurt our farm system. We've kind of been one of the top handful of farm systems for the last few seasons, and you can see right now we're ranked 15th of 30th overall. That's going to happen when you trade away your second and third best prospects, so hopefully we can replenish the farm system a bit over time. But with those two trades done, we haven't really done too much that I think will weaken us at the major league level. And we do have over $20 million as free agency begins, so we've got a lot of potential options ahead of us. But before we do that, we are going to look at our personnel and really take a deep dive into whether it's time to make some changes. The first big decision we have to make has to do with our team trainer, Nick Kenny. We have him signed for 4 more seasons through 2029. He's 64 years old, though, so he's certainly not going to be with us for the long term. Kenny, on paper, is a pretty solid trainer, but as those of you who have watched previous episodes know, the injury situation with Kansas City has not been great for the last few seasons, and the end of this past season was just an absolute disaster in terms of the injuries in the final weeks of the season. You look at his profile, though, and he's legendary or outstanding in a couple categories, decent in a couple of categories, and then good or excellent in everything else. So he's a pretty good trainer in the universe of trainers. Our top priority, wanting to be a team that builds around the pitching staff, is always to prevent arm injuries. He's excellent on that front, so there are legendary and outstanding are both better than that. But if we can find a competent replacement, we would consider moving on from Kenny. And there's not really a problem in finding a potentially competent replacement. You can see here Paul Buchheit from the Phillies is legendary at rehabbing arms and also legendary at preventing arm injuries, outstanding preventing other injuries, good or excellent everywhere else, and decent at rehabbing legs. So he is definitely, first and foremost, a name to consider. The issue is he has no interest in being the team trainer for Kansas City, so we don't even have an option to try to bring him on board as a replacement. Looking at the rest of the potential options that are out there, Brian Ebel from the Orioles, also a really nice, solid option. He's decent in preventing other and rehabbing other. but outstanding at preventing arm injuries, and then good or excellent everywhere else. But similarly, the issue with Brian Ebel is he has no interest in being the team trainer for Kansas City. So the two top prospects out there don't want to leave their teams to join us. The rest of the other prospects out there who are better at preventing arm injuries all have a lot of areas where they rank as fair or poor. So I think they would potentially be a downgrade for our team. The last option that might work is PJ Mainville, who is also employed right now with the Cubs. And he also has no interest in leaving his job to join Kansas City. So although all three of those players I think were decent options to consider, last option, is not really an option. You start looking at the people who are best, and Kenny shows up on the list as the next kind of person with a pretty versatile profile that we would consider. So although it was a real rough year for us from an injury perspective, I think Kenny is kind of the best option we have right now. There's no Rick Jameson out there right now to save us. So Nick Kenny will be back as our trainer next year, despite some concerns that we have about all the injuries that the Royals suffered in this 2025 season that was just completed. The even bigger potential staffing decision, though, is what to do with our manager, Mike Matheny. We have improved each year that we've been the GM of the team, 79 wins to 82 wins to 83 wins to 96 wins in a playoff team. But we did underperform our Pythagorean expectations in both 2022, 2023, and 2024. We were right in line with where we're supposed to be this year. The issue with Matheny, and I've kind of talked about this in the past, is just that he loves all of the position players and he hates all of the pitchers. In digging into this a little bit deeper, he really can't get along with the best pitchers on our team. Number 1 starter, Trevor Rogers, poor relationship. Number 2 starter, Caleb Lagerwell, poor relationship. Number 3 starter, Spencer Bauer, poor relationship. Ace closer, Austin Roberts, poor relationship. Important bullpen piece, Reed Gallimon, poor relationship. Potential future starter, Tyler Bosma, poor relationship. And then Mackenzie Gore, who finally got his first full-time action with the Royals this past season, poor relationship. So he can't get along with any of the pitchers except for Jose Suarez, and we've underperformed with him over the past few years. And he's also heading into the last year of his contract, so it'll cost us $1.1 million to get rid of him. But it might be time to do it. And I've thought about looking, and I did actually look in previous episodes, as you may remember, at some potential replacements from outside our team, some potential replacements in the minor leagues. But I think we may have the potential replacement right here on the Major League pitching staff and our bench coach, Byron Nichols, who's also in the final year of his contract. So it would just be kind of a one-year trial if we decide to go with Byron Nichols. But he's excellent with development mechanics. He's good at handling aging. Has a pretty down-the-middle profile for as far as how he wants to manage the roster. Isn't too extreme in any of his managing attributes. He's a tactician, which is fine. I don't spend a lot of time thinking about that. But importantly, he's going to have good relationships overall, and he actually can have good or average relationships with a lot of pitchers. It's not perfect. 4th or 5th starter, Hayden Wesneski, is potentially a poor relationship. And then Golemon and Aaron Ashby, who are both key relievers out of the bullpen, it's only a fair relationship. But most of the rest of the team, including a lot of starters, are average, good, or excellent relationships. So he's just going to get along a lot better with the overall team, including the pitchers, and that excellent, good development mechanics and aging in terms of his capabilities. Not quite as good as Matheny, who's excellent in all three. But I think it's time to try something else. The horrible relationship that Matheny has had with the pitchers for the last several years, actually since the beginning. And as we talked about in our last episode, it's also preventing, I think, about 4 of the top 8 or 9 potential free agent starting pitchers from even being willing to entertain an offer from our team. Still not sure in free agency whether we're going to go for a pitcher or a bat, but getting rid of Matheny at least gives us the option to go after a pitcher, because Byron Nichols is hopefully going to have a much more balanced approach to dealing with the pitchers. So we are going to appoint Mike Matheny, or we're going to appoint Byron Nichols as our manager in Kansas City to replace Mike Matheny. Yeah, Mike Matheny's not being interested in being the bench coach. I guess we got to fire him outright. That's fine. Was trying to do it in one step rather than two. But Mike Matheny, you're fired. Byron Nichols, congratulations. You are the new manager of the Kansas City Royals as we head into the 2026 season. And now we just need to find a new bench coach. You can see our team, everyone pretty much gets along now. A little bit of tension between our trainer, Nick Kenny, and our manager, Byron Nichols, but that's always been there. Bo Jackson and Nick Jackson are still excellent coaches for their teaching roles, and we've got good people in all the rest of the positions. So hopefully we can find a good bench coach who gets along with everybody, kind of improves or at least maintains the staff cohesion, and can maybe supplement some of the excellent coaching that we're already getting from Bo and Nick. And after a pretty comprehensive search, we have actually found our new bench coach on our pitching staff. We're going to have another internal promotion if he'll take the job. Third base coach Nick Jackson is good with development, good with mechanics, excellent with aging. As a bench coach, his incredible teaching skills will still be able to be utilized by our team. And he has good relationships overall, a lot of excellent and good relationships, and even average, and then 2 relationships that are only fair. Pretty good about across both pitching and hitting. So also has really good relationships with the team. So we are going to see if Nick Jackson is interested in a promotion to become our bench coach. And he's not interested in that role. A little bit surprising, but his real goal in life is to be a hitting coach, which he's only decent at. So interesting that we tried to give him a promotion and he didn't want to take it. All right, well, we've tracked down another potential option for our bench coach. He really wants to be a hitting coach, but we'll see. So Chavez is good with development, good with mechanics, outstanding with aging, pretty good at teaching different positions, and he would also have very good relationships with the players. So he would be a great bench coach. I just don't know if, given that he wants to be a hitting coach, whether he will actually be interested in the job or not. Says he has no interest in even being the hitting coach. So maybe he has no interest in being our bench coach. So having a tough time finding someone to be the bench coach here, but it is what it is. We will come up with somebody to hopefully join our coaching staff. We may have to lower our expectations a little bit as far as someone who's really going to check all of the boxes and just go with someone who can do the job. I guess the other option is to take another look through our minor league system and see if there may be somebody acceptable there that we can bring up to the major league roster. And hopefully the third time will be the charm. I think we hopefully have found our bench coach now. Bobby Crosby, who has been coaching in the Texas League for the last few years as the manager of the Midland Rockhounds. good with development mechanics and aging. He's personable, works well with normal, and struggles with temperamental, so he will fit in very well with our team. And he's expected to have very good relationships with the Royals players, nobody with fair and poor relationships, so he'll be just a overall positive influence in the clubhouse. The only concern is that he's not particularly good at coaching anything. But with Bo Jackson and Nick Jackson, we still have superior coaches for all of the coaching roles on the team. So we are going to go ahead and offer Bobby Crosby the opportunity to join us as our bench coach. Looking for a little bit of money, 3 years, $475,000 a pop. We'll see if we can sign him for $400,000 instead over those 3 years to join us as our bench coach. So Matheny is gone. We've promoted Byron Nichols, and we will hopefully bring on Bobby Crosby as our bench coach as we do decide to finally shake up the Major League coaching staff for these Royals, despite the fact that we are coming off of a pretty successful season. Hopefully it'll be even more successful next year with Nichols, who will hopefully get along with the pitching staff a lot better than Mike Matheny did for us. So now the big question becomes what to do in free agency and how can we best improve our team. You know, looking at the starting pitchers that are out there, we had thought about Zach Wheeler. He had no interest in playing for Matheny. He will potentially be interested in a 3-year contract to join us with Byron Nichols as our manager. Still looking for $17 million plus a year. He's fragile, and he'll be turning 36 next season. So certainly a very interesting option who over the course of his career has been a fantastic major league pitcher. Last season with the Mets, a 1.52 ERA plus and a 78 FIP minus, which were both even better than his pretty strong career marks. So Wheels is certainly one option for us to think about bringing on. Ranger Suarez, definitely another one too. Only 3 pitches, but they're really good pitches. Not the best stamina in the world, but over the course of his career, he's put up a 1.30 ERA plus and an 88 FIP minus. And he too is now willing to at least consider joining us, although we'd be paying him $22 million a year. So have some decisions to make on what we are going to pursue in free agency. So thinking about the pitchers first, you know, I like a lot of them. I like Wheeler. I like Ranger Suarez. I like Jacob deGrom. Had a really nice year last year with a 1.36 ERA plus, but his FIP minus of 97 and his Sierra of 4.04 suggests his best days may be behind him. And you look at the pitching profile, especially with the stuff that's probably not even average. I don't know that he's the answer. So some interesting decisions to make there. I don't think we're going to go with an infielder. You know, we've thought about adding the really big bat of Xander Bogaerts. He's a nice bat, but he's also looking for $24 million a year. I think we might get a little more bang for our buck if we go after an outfielder. And there's a couple guys that I'm kind of focusing in on here. Kyle Tucker is probably the best bat over the course of his career. 118 OPS plus, 115 WRC plus. Better than both of those career marks each of the last 2 years. Can play a respectable right field or left field. Could play center field in a pinch, but not optimal. Looking for close to $25 million a year, but good contact, real good gap power, plus home run power, average eye, average-ish at avoiding strikeouts. You know, a nice solid bat. And then I am, as I talked about in the last episode, intrigued by Jung-Hoo Lee, who's coming over from the Korean League, where he's basically, an MVP candidate, one of the best players in the league. You can see Platinum Stick, and he's won 3 Gold Gloves there in center field, 2 straight batting titles, led the league in WAR 2 of the last 3 seasons. Excellent player, really good at stealing and base running, respectable defensively, could play a good right field and an acceptable center field. Only 27 years old, gives us a option at center field other than Kyle Lewis. Probably a better hitter than Kyle Lewis, not quite as good defensively. Line drive hitter, I think, would play reasonably well in Kansas City. My big concern is, what is he really going to be in the major leagues with this batting profile? And I'll show you the reason I ask that. Probably the most similar profile out there in the league, who also happens to be a free agent to Jung-Hoo Lee, is Luis Arias, who's a fine player. But you look at their batting ratings, and Arias is a little better at contact, more gap power from Lee, more home run power from Lee, and then their eyes and avoid strikeouts are basically exactly the same. You look at some of the peripherals, and Lee is definitely better sacrifice bunter, better at bunting for hit, better running speed, better at stealing bases, much better with base running instincts. Lee is definitely a better offensive player than Luis Arias, but it doesn't seem like he's overwhelmingly better. And when we look at Luis Arias' stats over the course of his major league career, he's really just been an average-ish offensively productive player. Arias has a 98 OPS plus and a 97 WRC plus over the course of his career, an average of 1 WAR a season. So while I expect that we'd be a little bit better off offensively if we are to bring on Jung-Hoo Lee, he's going to be somewhere between the great player that he showed he was in Korea and kind of an average major league offensive player. Is that worth $20 million a year? Like I said, I think line drive hitter with acceptable speed, really good base runner, good stealer, the plus gap power. I think he'll be productive in Kansas City. And we need a backup center fielder, and who knows, he might end up being the starting center fielder for us over Kyle Lewis. It just gives us a lot more depth and versatility in the outfield, improves our overall defense, improves our hitting a bit. I just don't know if he's worth that kind of money to maybe be a player who puts up a 110-ish OPS plus and WRC plus in Major League Baseball. The thing that it would do if we brought him on, though, if you think about who's actually going to be on our Major League roster right now, Tyler Gentry, probably not. He could be our fifth outfielder when all is said and done, but he would certainly lose his spot if we bring on Lee. But with Paulini, Kyle Lewis, and Peyton Williams and Juan Yepez already in the outfield, I guess if we do bring him on, that could let us move on from Juan Yepez potentially, who is making $6.7 million this year. Although he's been a 117 OPS plus and a 119 WRC plus player for us over the course of his career, he's just not all that good defensively. So we may have money to have both. I mean, if we have Paulini, Lewis, Williams, Yepez, and then we add in a Jung-Hoo Lee, I mean, we've got a ton of really good options for outfield and designated hitter. We've got great depth if we have any injuries. We've got a mix of lefty and righty batters to mix and match our way through, pinch hit for people. I think it definitely helps the offense overall. Having Lee around helps, as I mentioned, our overall outfield defense a bit on the margins. I just don't know that I want to pay a guy like that $20 million a year. So I think we're going to make him an offer, but it's not going to be for 9 years, and it's not going to be averaging over $20 million a year, that's for sure. So I don't think Jung-Hoo Lee is going to be happy with what we offer him. He's looking for 9 years, $182 million. We are offering him 5 years, $80 million. So $100 million less than he's looking for. We did kind of up the bonus if he's an all-star or a most valuable player from what he wanted, but he wanted a lot of player options. We put in a team option in the last year. He wanted a no-trade clause, which we did not include. I don't think he's going to be too receptive to this, but as much as I like him as a player, I don't want to chase him. So he's actually willing to consider it. So we'll go and submit the offer to him. Obviously, if we bring him on board, that means that we're not going to be able to go after one of the real frontline starters. Hopefully, with Rogers and Lagerwell and Bauer, and then the potential for Suarez, Wisniewski, Bubic, Gore, Vanasco to be filling in those 4 and 5 spots, without even talking about potentially thinking about over time bringing up a Wyatt Wendell. You know, there's options for us to fill in those 4 and 5 spots in the rotation. Similar to last year, the main goal is to keep those top 3 pitchers healthy. So our pitching was best in the league last year. Our offense could use a little more help. So we're going to see if we can bring on Lee. And we have officially brought Bobby Crosby on board as our bench coach, so that fills out our personnel. Team cohesion seems like it's going to be really excellent. Still have great coaching, even though Bobby Crosby is not the best coach. But hopefully the clubhouse is even better than it has been with the leadership of these guys. And moving Matheny out of there makes our pitchers walk on a few less eggshells when they are around the manager than they have had to over the last several seasons. And Jung-Hoo Lee likes our offer. Again, I'm really torn on this one. The productivity he's had in Korea suggests that he's going to be a real good offensive player. And he should absolutely be better than Luis Arias. You know, the question is if he's a 105 WRC plus player, that's better than Arias, but that's not worth $16 million a year. If he's a 120 WRC plus kind of player, then that's definitely worth the money for us. So hopefully we'll get him on board and we'll be able to see how he really produces. I don't think the contract is so out of line at 5 years and $16 million a year that if we get him on board and it really doesn't work out, we should be able to move on from him without too much pain. And Dustin May, we made a minor league offer to with a major league option in our previous episode, is also considering that offer. Clayton Kershaw has moved on, not surprisingly. Players disappointed that he left. We never made an offer to him. He got $22 million a year from the Phillies. Only 2 years. Given that he's going to be 38 next season and he was fragile, even if we could have picked him up for, close to 22 million a year for 2 years, I don't think that was the right move for us. And Jung-Hoo Lee, of course, is now looking for more money. Says that he's got a better offer from Houston, so we're going to have to decide whether we want to continue to pursue him or potentially head in a different direction with a hitter or maybe pivot back to pitching. I'm thinking about pivoting back to Zach Wheeler. Obviously, the fragility scares me. He's going to turn 36 next season, which isn't great. But he's got great movement, great control, plus stuff, 6 pitches. The fastball and sinker are really good. The splitter, the curve, and the slider are all around average, and the changeup is nothing special, but it's his 6th pitch. High work ethic, extreme ground ball pitcher who still throws really hard. I don't want to sign him for tons of years, and I don't know if I even want to give him $17 million a season. But if he'll sign for less than that, that would give us a top 4 that is just awesome as far as our rotation. And then we'll just have to make sure that we can keep Bauer and Wheeler in particular, who are both fragile, healthy. We're going to lowball Wheeler a bit. He's looking for $17.67 million a year for 3 years. We're offering him $14 million a year for 3 years, team option rather than a player option. Not going to offer him a no-trade clause. He doesn't want to play that, so we're going to have to offer him a little bit more if we want to think about getting him on board. You can see he really wants the no-trade clause, really wants the player option, and really wants more money. So we're going to have to do better if we want to think about locking him up. So maybe let's see just how much we're going to need to offer if we do want to lock up Jung-Hoo Lee. And we could always pivot to Kyle Tucker. Jung-Hoo Lee's looking for 18. We had offered him 16 before. Still only 5 years and still with the team option. So it's not egregious. 17.5 a year for 5 years. Still with a team option. He's willing to think about it. So we'll pivot back to Lee. If things don't work out with him, though, Wheeler may be the way to go. I don't think I'm going to go higher on Lee. I think if he comes back, and it's very possible that Houston will offer him more or someone else will offer him more. If that happens, I think it's probably time to pivot to Kyle Tucker or to maybe go back to Wheeler, Suarez, maybe DeGrom. We'll see what happens. Not really a shocker that it looks like Dustin May probably got a major league contract offer. We were willing to bring him into camp if we could do it on a minor league deal, but he is a average-ish relief arm. Could start in a pinch if we needed him to, but we were just going to give him that minor league contract, and then if he made the team, great. If he didn't, oh well. Certainly not going to give him a guaranteed major league contract with all of the talent we have in our bullpen, so more than content to move on from Dustin May and let him go to the Yankees or somewhere else. So it sounds like we're back on top again with Jung-Hoo Lee, although it's not going to shock me if he comes back and says he's got a better offer from someone else. Our scout is wondering whether Juan Soto would make us a better team. Yeah, I think he absolutely would. Incredible hitter. I'm guessing that Washington's going to be looking for a lot for him. Yeah, we don't even have anyone on the team that they would accept for him. Not that I'm going to do this, but let's see what else they would want on top of Bobby Witt Jr. if we were willing to put him in a deal. Oh, we can't afford the contract. Oh, that's because we've got the big offer out, so that could be why it's not working. Yeah, of course they're not going to be interested if we... Well, Bobby Witt and half of Juan Soto's contract, what else would we need to add? Yeah, there's still nothing else that makes it work. So, yeah, great suggestion by our scout. Juan Soto would make us better. I think you can say that about 30 teams in Major League Baseball. So Lee favors our offer. Wheeler and DeGrom are still out there. Looks like Ranger Suarez has signed, so that's not optimal if we do fall through on Lee. Looking at the outfielders, Kyle Tucker is still out there. He could be a potential fallback for us. Hard to imagine that a $23 million a year player is a potential fallback, but could be what we end up doing. Hopefully, hopefully we get Lee at the level we're looking for. If not, hopefully there's still some big-time players who could help our roster out there if things fall through. So we've made it to the Rule 5 draft. Still hadn't heard back from Jung-Hoo Lee, but the potential options for us are getting smaller. You can see our fallback for outfield no longer available. Looking at the infield, and Xander Bogaerts is signed, so our potential option there is gone. Still do have Wheeler and DeGrom potentially out there as options. We're not going to go with Zach Eflin. I think he's kind of an average-ish type of pitcher, which we have plenty of. Don't need to be paying him close to $10 million to be a fourth or fifth starter, but hopefully we can get some resolution on Lee one way or another, while Wheeler in particular and maybe DeGrom are still out there if we have to pursue one of them as a fallback. And we've lost one player, Daniel Cabrera, in the early stages of the Rule 5 draft. An average-ish major league bat, 27 years old, mediocre defensive corner outfielder. You can see he's been in Omaha for the last 3 years for us. Did get a little play in Kansas City in 2024. He was organizational depth, but not somebody that we wanted to be paying a major league contract to, so we did not put him on the 40-man roster. Returning back to the Rule 5 draft, scouting director doesn't recommend that we do anything. We'll take a look at the top players out there just to see if there's anything interesting, but probably not going to be anything to do for the Royals here. Devin Kirby's a interesting relief option. Again, we don't really need to bolster our bullpen that much, but solid stuff, solid movement, acceptable control. 3 pitches, really good slider, decent sinker and splitter. Not a lot of stamina. He's a bullpen guy, a side armor. Doesn't throw real hard, but he's a ground ball pitcher. But in the brief time that he has had in the majors, he's put up a 176 ERA plus and a 71 FIP minus. I mean, it's only over 51 and a third innings, but I don't think it hurts us to see what he looks like in spring training. Worst case scenario as we send him back to the Twins organization. So thinking about him, Alex Vesia is older, 29-year-old. Decent profile, really good stuff. His ERA plus suggests he's been incredible at the major league level, but his FIP minus of 95 suggests he's just been a little bit above average, but a lefty arm who's tougher on lefties than he is on righties. He's going to be 30 next year. Neither of them is really all that exciting. Kyle Finnegan is the third player out there who at least his 3-star ability right now. A nice profile. Has been a solid, respectable major league pitcher, but just nothing all that exciting. Lefty Hunter Barco. It's tough on lefties, which is interesting. He's only 25 years old. Good stuff, acceptable movement, decent control. 3 nice pitches. There's just nobody here that's exciting enough. I usually like to, kind of take the free option of bringing somebody on board, but with the relievers that we have at the major league level and the glut of 4 and 5 starters that we have, that we're probably going to want to keep a few around in case we have injuries, I just don't think any of these players are going to make our major league roster. So we are going to move on and just auto-complete the Rule 5 draft. And nothing happened after our pick. As I mentioned, we lost Daniel Cabrera. Other than that, there were 2 players picked even earlier than him. So a pretty uneventful Rule 5 draft for 2025. And we have landed Jung-Hoo Lee. Fans are pleased. He's pleased to join us. We ended up paying him more than we wanted at $17.5 million a year for 5 years. But happy to bring the center fielder on board. Hopefully he can become a really productive offensive player for us. So that's clearly going to be our big activity for this offseason. But we are going to get Jung-Hoo Lee onto the Major League roster. And then we are going to see what our new manager suggests doing with the players we have. Interesting. He puts Lee in at DH against both lefties and righties, so he's in the lineup every day. The guy who misses out is Peyton Williams, the youngster who was in DH against righties. And then Nick Pratto misses out a bit because Zach DeCenzo was our DH against lefties. He moves to first base, and Pratto moves out of the lineup to get Jung-Hoo Lee in at DH. So the player who's really going to potentially lose some playing time with bringing on Jung-Hoo Lee is a bit surprisingly Peyton Williams, the young bat. 27 homers and 413 at-bats for us as a rookie last year. Love the home run power there. Doesn't really have a great defensive position, but that's not really unique for our team. So now the question is, with Juan Yepez in left field against both lefties and righties, do we think about trying to move on from Yepez potentially to save close to $7 million, open up a spot in the lineup for Peyton Williams to be playing on a more regular basis? I don't think that a move like that, that puts us at about $12 million. I don't think that gives us quite enough to go after a Zach Wheeler. Does it give us enough to maybe go after DeGrom for 1 year? if we really want to go all in. We probably need to find somebody else. It's probably not clearing enough salary. The other thing we could do, though, is cut back on the scouting budget or the development budget for a year. Obviously not optimal, but if we're all in on this upcoming season, I don't think we lose a ton by putting in Peyton Williams for Yepez in the lineup. And with the money that we open up, can we potentially add another arm to the starting rotation and turn our big three of Rogers, Lagerwell, and Bauer into a big four with a Wheeler or DeGrom? The other thing that would let us do, we're paying Jose Suarez over $4 million. We don't need him as a fifth starter if we bring on one of those big pitchers. So if we trade away Suarez and his $4 million salary, and we trade away Yepez and his close to $7 million salary, then I think we really can potentially bring on one of those top pitchers also. So that's what we're going to be focused on in our next episode. I'm going to give it some thought between now and then. If you've got thoughts on how we should proceed, would love to hear them down below. Thanks so much for all the thoughts and the comments and for watching this video, and hope you have a great day.